Welcome back to Your View. Joining us on the show is an international businessman, rated by the influential financial magazine Forbes in 2014, the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Costain West Africa PLC. He's also aspiring to be the Governor of Oyo State. Welcome, Mr. Ayodeji Karim. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You can join us on 070-806-6814. You can also tweet to us at TVC Connect. Please hashtag YourViewTV so we can read your tweets. Now, you know that Your View is supporting every young person out there who's running for office. We want to give them a platform to show them, because the idea is, you know, you're too young to run. So we're as many aspirants as possible. We're inviting them just to hear your views and your thoughts. Before we get into your political ambition, we heard there was a rift between you and your brother concerning this issue of governorship. Have you guys sorted it out, or are we going to see a competition between siblings fighting for that same position? Have you guys resolved that issue?
There was no issue at all.
Okay.
The report was unfounded.
Okay.
There's not a time myself and my brother had an issue.
Okay.
My brother is not a politician. I am.
All right.
And I am the one, putting myself forward to express I've shown my expression of interest.
Right.
I've shown in Oyo State governorship.
So you've been obviously endorsed by the current governor, Jimobi. Somewhat, we know he's your friends, and he's like a brother to you, obviously. And in your view, I don't want you to rate his own administration, but what he's done, but what is it about his own work that you plan to develop on, or you work on? What have you seen when he's done, and what do you plan to build on? Or do you feel he hasn't done anything at all?
If we were to do a comparative analysis, Governor Jimobi, in comparison to his predecessors, he has done fantastically well in terms of putting structures in place, in terms of infrastructure, agribusiness, education, etc. For me personally, the way I see it is that we need someone to take over and take it to an exponential level. And I see myself doing that.
Okay, so you have a 6-point agenda for this.
That's correct.
Infrastructure, sports, health, agriculture, power, and education.
Yes.
Coming from the state of artisans, how do you plan to, because I would expect that you'd restructure the education system to accommodate entrepreneurship. So how do you plan to do this with the LRO, the mentality of bricklayer,
organizer?
How do you plan to do?
Don't forget, Oyo State is not necessary. Oyo State is it's a major education state.
Yes.
It's a lot of universities, higher institutions, etc.
First.
So on one side is there's higher education, and on one side there's a lot of artisans.
So,
in order to capture that, as far as I'm concerned, what I think we should do is lay a lot of emphasis on training. But that training has to be tied onto some of the higher institutions so we can have certification. For me, I think Oyo State should be, if you haven't gone to Oyo State to study or to learn, to educate yourself, you haven't been anywhere in Nigeria. And that's where we're planning to go with our programs.
So you have your I-Shape initiative that you plan to carry out when you get into office. Now, we've had politicians with a lot of good manifestos, and then they get into the office and they, they claim that they don't have the opportunity to actually actualize what they've told us. So how do we hold you accountable with all these plans that you've made?
One of the things, let's talk about numbers. It's okay for us to have all these fancy ideas, but obviously you have to have the resources and the funding available. In Oyo State, for example, our budget in a year is around about 208 billion, which gives us about 16 billion a month. And if you look at the spending on a monthly basis, salaries of civil service and public servants, it's about 6 billion out of that. You have recurring expenditure on previous loans of about 1.8 billion. So it leaves us with 8.2 billion, for example. 8.2 billion is available to look after healthcare, agriculture, infrastructure, all these things. Obviously, you know where we're sitting. There's a mismatch there. So first things first, we need to beef up the revenue revenue generation by attracting investment into the system first. Then let me compare that to Lagos, for example, has a budget of around about 1.2 trillion. So your state is still at 1/6 of that. So for us to achieve what we need to achieve, we need to be running around about 400 billion budget a year. So that is the first point of call. We need to sit down, have an economic team that will be able to beef up that side. It's not about generating internally. There's no way like you said, we're a lot of artisans and butchers and stuff. There's no way we'll be able to generate the sort of revenue that's required. It needs to come from outside.
Okay.
I wanted to follow up on your predecessor got very famous for the comment about being constituted authority.
Yes.
So I wanted your thoughts on what would be your ethos if you do become the governor in terms of relating with citizens and being accountable to the citizens you govern.
One of my training in the army is when you do command tasks is you have to be accessible to your troops. You have to be accessible to people. We have an open door policy where we would have interaction with the communities, with the people. You know, when you look at your predecessor and you look at things that he has done, and they say, "This, I will do this slightly different." There's a lot of things I would do different. What I mean by that is, we would have a session, maybe once a month, where we can, you know, answer questions. People can phone in, or radio programs where people can phone in. We'll be open to people. You have to respect the people, respect the environment. If you do those things properly.
Talking about respecting the environment, because we get lots of technocrats, businessmen who are enlightened, exposed, and say, you know what, they want to come back home to change things. And we've seen the formats of the Fayemi, former Governor Fayemi and Fayoshi. We saw their strategies, how one came in and was trying to do so many lofty plans, and people were like, sorry, slow down, bro. And the next governor came and did a different strategy and was able to get that connection with the people. Now, with you being a businessman, internationally acclaimed, you know, how would you connect with the bricklayer in your state to vote for you?
We're already doing that. I mean, I'm a man of the people. I'm on the ground on a daily basis. I speak English and I speak Yoruba very well, so I communicate in both languages, whichever. Like I said, I'm very accessible. I don't have the issue of rolling my sleeves, wearing my khaki and just going into the market. One of the key things is that before we start telling everybody I-shape, the first thing we do, which is different, is that what are the issues, what are the challenges, what do you need? It's okay for us to have this global plan. If it doesn't fit into the local agenda, then it makes no sense. Yeah. So we need to strike a balance somewhere.
Go back to my artisan questions, because you see, I'm reading through your profile, you're also a farmer.
Yes.
And one of the major problems that we have between artisans and, you know, maybe educated people is that dignity of labor that, you know, that is missing. I would like to see the yes or Shunabio yes plan happen in Oyo, for instance, where you have a way of merging these people and giving them quality for or what you think they are worth. How do you plan to do this? I don't just want to hear we'll do. How exactly? Okay. How is it going to plan out? Okay,
remember at the beginning of when you asked me, I said one of the first things, we need to merge the higher institutions with the training programs.
Yes.
First of all. So that brings dignity back to those trades.
Okay.
So
certification.
That certification,
yes, that's number one.
Takes care of that.
First, it takes care of. Then secondly, when you're delivering a process, right? The people, the training program itself brings dignity back. We want to be known for supplying the rest of the country these skills that's readily available in your state. We don't need to bring the thing. So if you're thinking artisans, you're thinking butchers, you're thinking drivers, look at your state.
So you just got to where I was going.
Yes.
Supplying.
Yes.
So do you, after the training, do you now plan to put together something to market them, get them to do their jobs, you know, maybe with an arrangement
to the
general
plan. In part of your training program, part of the things that we're already marketing on behalf of these skills to other parts of the country, other parts of Africa, where the skills is certified by a proper university or higher institution, and we know they're properly trained, they're well cultured. All we need, I think part of our micro targets that if you're between the ages of 17 and 23, all you need to do is be able to read and write. The rest we will train you.
But do you find, to talk about, there's a young people and working.
Yes.
So I think we mentioned this earlier about wanting to hammer people, the lure for quick money now. Yeah. The things that you're talking about is hard work.
It is.
So artisanship is really hard work. So to be marketable, not only in Nigeria or in the sub-region, takes people who are dedicated and that's what they want to do. It's not a stopgap until Yes. How are you planning? And for me, I think that's it's a mind issue. How do you plan? It's not just providing certification.
You see, one of the first things is that people like myself, I call myself a farmer. Someone like myself with my background, I have to make it look funky, first of all. So to attract the people. Secondly, the remuneration that's required at the end of it also has to be an attraction for people wanting to do it. So those are the kind of ways in which we're planning to achieve it.
Okay. I was going to, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I know that the universities are not really very practical. Now you want to professionalize the vocations.
Correct.
Don't you think you should be looking into getting experts who, like in other countries outside, we have these vocations that are professionalized. So you get experts in to train them,
Let me let you
not
answer that
relying
question
on the universities.
I'll let you answer that after the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view